संस्कृता वाणी अक्षरा.
As discussed earlier, the Vedic man considered the nature as the supreme force. He knew its importance in his life and so he praised it. Hence, the natural phenomena are found as the devatas of Vedic suktas, especially in Rig Veda. We also saw that the concept of devata in Rig Veda differs from the concept of God known to us. This is precisely because Rig Veda is believed to be the earliest text available to us, and so the concepts in Rig Veda are also primary. To understand this difference, it is imperative to understand the chronology of the text available. The chronology goes this way. First, there were the Vedas, then the Brahmanas and Upanishads, and later came the Puranas. The gods that we worship today are majorly in the forms as described in the Puranas. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Parvati, Lakshmi, and so on are the prominent gods of the Puranic text, whereas the Vedic deities are more nature-centric like the fire, sun, natural order or Ruta, etc. The beliefs and concepts of every society are the reflection of the social life. The text composed in every era are narrative of human life in that era, may it be social or spiritual. Every era has its own story to tell, and so does the Vedic as well as the Puranic era. The very fact that these two are different eras underlines that their prominent concepts and ideas would also be different. The Vedas, being the earliest treatises, highlight the notions and the needs of the earliest man. And on the other hand, the Puranas glorify the prosperous era of spiritual development. These two eras have certain fundamental differences in their very existence, and so the Vedic deities and the Puranic gods also share these differences. The Puranic era, being the later one, is familiar to us. Thus, we are acquainted with the gods and the mythologies related to them as stated in the Puranas. But we are unaware of the actual forms of the Vedic deities. Vedas being the root of the whole knowledge system, the origin of certain concepts can be traced back to the Vedas. However, out of these Vedic concepts, some concepts would have changed, some would have developed, some would have remained the same, or some would have vanished totally. As we already have seen, Vedic man praised the nature so that it remains favorable to him. His needs were very fundamental, and so were his deities. But later, as the needs of the man changed, his concept of deity also changed. Once he understood the pattern and functioning of the nature, he could manage his needs. He learned to protect himself from the unfavorable nature. His needs grew from physical to mental, and therefore the form of deities also changed. The span of composition and compilation of the Vedas is a very large one, and therefore the Vedas are indicative of the development of human life from various angles. They indicate the man worshipping the nature on one hand, and on the other they also incorporate the developments in the fields of philosophy, medicine, rituals, astronomy, etc. Thus, the expanse of the Vedic knowledge in itself is a vast one, and hence it is very important to keep the slate of our minds clean before studying the Vedas in order to understand them correctly. This is important because there are certain deities which can also be found in the later text but described differently. For instance, the Puranic Indra is very much different from the Vedic Indra. Similar can be seen in the case of Varuna, Vishnu, Rudra, etc. And so, before knowing the Vedas, we need to keep our minds empty and understand the Vedic deities from the perspective of the Vedic man. Apart from the perspective to understand the Vedas, another important aspect is the understanding of the oral tradition. What is oral tradition and why is it important to study the Vedas? As we all know, Vedas were compiled when the script wasn't much developed, and hence they were passed on from generations to generations orally. However, the major and noteworthy point here is that even though passed orally, the Vedas haven't changed at all. No suktas were added or subtracted from it. How do we know this? By the study of the text found in the different parts of India. As we all know, Ramayana and Mahabharata were also passed orally. And throughout the process, the history called Jaya became Bharata and further exceeded to Mahabharata containing 1 lakh verses. Ramayana also expanded similarly. This happened because of the additions made in them over the period of time. However, in case of Vedas, no such addition or change is made. This is because the rules of recitation of the Vedas are very strict. It does not allow even a change of single letter in the Vedas. In fact, it is believed that the one who utters the Vedas wrongly would incur sin. Not only the suktas and the ruks are to be recited correctly, but also every syllable in them. Each syllable has an accent in the sukta: udatta, anudatta, and swarita. These accents decide the pronunciation rules and also emphasize certain meanings. The Brahmanas and the other later texts also highlight the importance of the precision in recitation of the Vedas. An interesting story underlining the importance of correct pronunciation can be found in the Taittiriya Samhita. Once, in order to defeat Indra, Tvashta uttered Indra Shatru Vardhasva, by which he meant, let the enemy of Indra be victorious. However, while uttering this, he committed a mistake in the accent and pronounced the first syllable as Udatta. Result, the first part was emphasized upon, and therefore instead of Indra Shatru, that is Vrutra, being victorious, Indra became victorious and killed Vrutra. Thus, even a slight difference in swara while reciting the Vedas could change the meaning altogether. And thus, this and other similar rules and norms, the tradition prevented the probability of changes in the Vedas. On this, the next question that strikes the mind: how is it possible to remember the entire Vedas without even missing a single detail? Here again, the tradition comes into the picture. There are 11 methods of reciting the Vedas in the oral tradition. They are Samhita, Pada, Krama, Jata, Mala, Shikha, Rekha, Dhwaja, Danda, Ratha, Ghana. In these methods, the mantras are chanted using various permutations and combinations of the words in the given mantra. This enables to remember the order of the words correctly, and also no word is forgotten. For example, in the Samhita method, all the words in the mantra are joined by sandhi and chanted together, whereas in the Pada method, each word is chanted individually. The further methods become more complex, where the combinations of words are recited and repeated in various patterns. Among these, the Ghana method is believed to be the toughest one. All these methods ensure that every word of the Sukta is uttered properly and none of them is forgotten. And so, the oral tradition protected the Vedas from any changes or additions. Also, it carried forward the Vedic heritage just as it was. Thus, we all are indebted to this tradition for passing on this knowledge unchanged. And so, it is our duty now to know and understand this very knowledge without diluting it with our preconceptions. As said earlier, many names from the Vedas are known to us in some or the other manner. We also know certain stories and concepts, but their roles and descriptions in the Vedas is different from that we know, and hence a clean slate of mind helps us understand the actual Vedic knowledge precisely. Now, with the mind trained to understand the Vedas from the eyes of the Vedic man, we can proceed with the study of the actual structure of Vedas, starting from the Rig Veda. So, to know more, keep watching Abhidnya Vedana, a project by Team Aksharaa.